provides three primary functions, which is frame delimiting, addressing, and error detection. While the Ethernet frame has MAC sublayer. So, media control is responsible for replacement of frames on the frames from the media sublayer communication layer. The switch receives the Ethernet frame, examines the source MAC address, and notices that this MAC address is not in its MAC address table. So it adds that MAC address and incoming port numbers. Next, the switch examines the destination's MAC address and notices that this MAC address is not in this table. So it floods it all on ports. The computer receives the Ethernet frame, examines the destination MAC address, and against its own MAC address and notices that it is matched the receives the rest of the frame. There are two variants of cut-through switching. Fast-forward fragment-free switching. Fast-forward switching offers the lowest level of latency. The switch immediately forwards a packet after reading the destination's address. This is the most typical form of cut-through switching. Fragment-free switching, in which the switch stores the first 64 bytes of the frame before forwarding. It is a compromise between store and forward and fast-forward switching. In an attempt to conserve bandwidth and not forward useless frames, Ethernet device drop frames that are considered to be rand less than 64 bytes or jumbo greater than 1,500 byte frames. The minimum Ethernet frame is 64 bytes. The maximum Ethernet frame is 1,518 bytes. A network technician must know the minimum and maximum frame size in order to recognize and jumbo frames. A MAC address is composed of 6 bytes. The first 3 bytes are used for vendor identification and the last 3 bytes must be assigned a unique value within the same UI. MAC addresses are implemented in hardware. An NIC needs a MAC address to communicate over the LAN. The IE regulates the MAC addresses. A switch builds a MAC address table by inspecting an incoming layer 2 frames and recording the source MAC address found in the frame header. The discovered and recorded MAC address is then associated with the port. When the store and forward switching method is used, the switch receives the complete frame before forwarding it on the destination. The cyclic redundancy check, part of the trailer used to determine the frame has been modified during the transit. In contrast, a cut-through switch forward the frame once the destination layer 2 address is ready. Two types of cut-through switching methods as fast-forward and fragment-free. Auto MDIX is a feature that is enabled on the latest Cisco switches and allows the switch to detect and use whatever type of cable is attached to a specific port. Buffering is a technique used by Ethernet switches to store frames until they can be transmitted with port-based buffering frames and stored in that are linked to specific incoming and outgoing ports. Let's proceed to the search of the OSI model. Host addressings. Every host in network must have a unique address that determines the address is normally assigned from an hierarchically system. For example, you can be Fred Marpy 1 street and so on. Message forwarding. Since many networks are partitions into subnetworks and connects to other networks for a wide area communication, network use specialized hosts called gateways or routers to forward packets between between networks. The network layers is primarily concerned with the passing data from a source to the destinations on another network. IP addresses supplies unique identifiers for the source and destination. The network layers provides connectionless, best effort delivery. Devices rely on higher layers to supply services to processes. The data link layers indicates to the network layer the MTU for the medium that is being used. The network layer uses that information to determine how large the packet can be when it is forwarded. When packets are received on one medium and forwarded on a medium with a smaller MTU, the network layer device can fragment the packet to accommodate the smaller size. A default gateway address allows a switch to forward packets that originates on the switch to remote networks. A default gateway address on switch does not provide layer 3 routing for PCs that are connected on that switch. The switch can still accessible from Telnet as long as the source of the Telnet connection is on a local network. So, NAT or network address translation is process of modifying the IP packet header information on a packet going outside the corporate network. Corporate networks typically use private addresses on an inside LAN and need a public address to be able to communicate through a WAN. When a router receives a packet, the router will decrement the time to leave or TTL find filled by 1. When the field reaches 0, the receiving router will discard the packet and will send the ICMP time exceeded message to the sender. The iOS image is typically stored in a flash memory. If the image is not in flash memory when the router boots, the router bootstrap program can look for it on a TFTP server. The function of the network layer protocol specifies the packet structures and processing used to carry the data from one host to another host. The actual communication data is encapsulated in the network layer PDU. The features of its operation without regard to the data carried in each packet allows the network layer to carry packets for multiple types of communications. The iOS file is stored in a flash memory and copied into RAM during the boot up. The IP routing table is also stored in a RAM, tracking the individual's communication between application on the source and host destination, segmenting for manageability and resembling the segmented data into streams application data at the destinations, identifying the proper application for each communications. Applications communicates with one or more application on one or more remote hosts. It is responsibility of the transport layer to maintain and track these multiplier conversations. Transport layer protocols have services that segment the application data into blocks of data that are an appropriate size. A header used for resample is added to each block of data. This header is used to track the data stream. The transport layer assigns each applications an identifier. An identifier is called port number. Each software process that needs access to network is assigned a port number unique in that host. A directed broadcast is a message to all hosts on a specific network. It is useful for sending a broadcast to all hosts on a non-local network. A multicast message is a message sent to a selected group of hosts that are part of the subscribing multicast group. A limited broadcast is used for a communication that is limited to the host on the local network. A unicast message is a message sent from one host to another. With the IPv4 address, a subnet mask is also necessary. A subnet mask is a special type of IPv4 address that is coupled with the IP address determines the subnet of which the device is a member. An IPv4 address is divided into two parts, a network portion and a host portion. A network portion is to identify a specific network on which a host resides. A host portion is to identify the specific host on a network as subnetworks. or subnets. An IP address includes network segment and a host segment. Subnets are designed by accepting bits from IP addresses host part and using these bits to assign a number of smaller subnetwork inside original network. Subnetting allows an organization to add subnetworks without the need to acquire a new network number via the internet service provider. Subnetting helps to reduce the network traffic and conceals network complexity. Subnetting is essential when a single network number has to allocated over numerous segments of a local area network LAN. Subnets were initially designed for solving the shortage of IP addresses over the internet. Class A and Class B and Class C include the subnet mask known as the default subnet mask. The subnet mask is intended for determining the type of number of IP addresses default. Dividing the network into number of subnets provides the following benefits. Reduces the network traffic by reducing the volume of broadcasts have to surpass the constraint in a local area network. For example, the maximum number of permitted hosts enables users access a work network from their homes. There is no need to open complete network. When two or more switches are connected together, the size of the broadcast domain is increased, and so it's the number of collision domains. The number of broadcast domains is increased only when the routers are added. Two reasons for creating subnets includes reduction of overall network traffic and improvements of network performance. The subnets also allow an administrator to implement subnet-based security policies. The number of routers or switches are not affected. Subnets do not simplify network design. Each network that is directly connected to an interface on a router requires its own subnet. The formula 2n, where n is the number of bits borrowed, is used to calculate the available number of subnets when borrowing specific numbers of bits. DHCP is generally the preferred method of assigning IP addresses to hosts on large network because it reduces the burden on network support staff and virtually eliminates entry errors. However, DHCP itself does not discriminate between authorized and unauthorized devices and will assign configuration parameters to all the requesting device. DHCP servers are usually configured subnet range so there is no guarantee that devices get what. A company uses addresses block of 128.107.0.0-16. For each network, the subnet mask will provide the maximum number of equal size subnets while providing enough host addresses for each subnet in the exhibit. The largest subnet in the topology has 100 hosts, so it's at least 7 host bits. 27 minus 2 equals 126. 225 equals 0.0 has to meet requirement providing the maximum. If a network device has a mask of /28, how many IP addresses are available? In this video, please keep on watching. So, subnetting IP networks. Subnetting IP networks subnetting is the strategy used to partition a single physical network into more than one smaller logical subnetworks or subnets. An IP address includes network segments and host segments. Subnetting helps to reduce the network traffic and conceal network complexity. Subnetting works applying concept extended network addresses to individual computer. A subnet mask is used to divide an IP address into two parts. One part identifies the host computer, the other part identifies the network to which it belongs. To better understand how IP addresses and subnet masks look up an IP protocol addresses and see how it organized. The main purpose of subnetting is to help relieve a network congestion. Congestion used to be a bigger problem than it is today because it is more common for networks to use hubs than switches. When nodes on a network are connected through a hub, the entire network acts as a single collision domain. The registered ports are assigned by IANA to a requesting entity to use specific processes or application. These processes are primarily individual application that a user has chosen to install, rather than common application that would receive a well-known port number. For example, Cisco has the register port 1985 for its hot standby routing protocols process. In a segment, the transport layer header will include the source and destination process or port numbers. Destinations and source physical addressing is included in the frame header. Destination and source logical addressing is included in a network header. Application data is encoded in the upper layers of the protocol stack. On sockets, a socket is combination of a source IP address port on the destination IP address on each application processes running on the servers is configured to use a port number either by default or manually by system administrator on an individual server cannot have two services assigned to the same port number within the same transport layer services. A host running a web server application and file transfer application cannot have both configured to use the same server port. There can be many ports open simultaneously on a server, one for each active server application. Windows is the number of bytes that the sender will send prior to expecting an acknowledgement from the destination devices. The initial window is agreed upon during the session startup by the three-way handshake between source and destination. It is determined by how much data the destination device of TCP session is able to accept and process at one time. If the horse no, if the source determines that TCP segments are either not being acknowledged or not acknowledged in a timely manner, then it can reduce the number of bytes it sends before receiving an acknowledgement. Notice that it is the source that reducing the number of acknowledged bytes it sends. This thus changing the window size in a segment header. PC is downloading a large file from a server.